Final Fantasy XIV is a massive game with thousands of hours of content. What I'm going to do here is break down some of the major plot points for those of you who want to know more about Eorzea, but may not have time to experience it all firsthand. Today, we're tackling the story of the Red Mage. The story begins in Ul'dah when the Warrior of Light runs across a child in distress. Some people tried to kidnap her and her sister, but she managed to get away. Being the hero that you are, you agree to help rescue her sister. Someone else was also on their way to attempt a rescue, but there were 6 attackers, so he'd probably be horribly outnumbered, so you hurry to give your support. Your help isn't needed, however, as a Makode dressed in red with a sword wielding strange magic makes short work of the men. He introduces himself as Exrune Tia, and the two of you escort the girl back to Ul'dah. The kids thank you both before heading home, and to celebrate your successful job, you and Exrune head to get a drink. He recognizes your name from a girl named Alize who he had ran into and was convinced to teach the arts of a Red Mage. She took a while, but by the time they parted ways, she was skilled at combining fencing with the arcane arts. Since your friend did it, he offers to teach you as well. However, his teaching method is more hands-on, and you will travel around with him to help people you find in need. Pretty much what you do anyway as an adventurer, so you gladly accept. Donning the garb of a Red Mage, Exrune begins by telling you the history of his order. During the 6th Umbral Era 1500 years ago, 2 magic-wielding civilizations fought, bringing about the 6th Umbral Calamity. People fled into the mountains of Giribania to avoid the devastating floods and waves of destruction that altered the very lands. Even some mages from Ma'ak and Amdapor who weren't part of the fighting hid among the refugees. The others blamed these mages and sought to get revenge on them, causing them to stop practicing black and white magic altogether. But magic in some form would be needed to help rebuild the world after the calamity, so the former students of white and black magic merged their teachings, creating the Red Mages, who focused on balancing astral and umbral ether. After the history lesson, Exrune believes it's time for you to find who had sent the kidnappers after the girl so you can get some field practice with red magic. So the two of you head to the Church of Saint Adama Landama to start asking some questions. The leader of the church, Iliad, knows of a few mage cults that may fit the description, making me wonder just what kinds of people he hangs out with. But he needs to know more about the attackers if he's going to help. Exrune reveals that not only did the attackers not say a word, they all had a glowing magical tattoo. Iliad knows of the practice. It is a curse that turns the marked people into mindless puppets. They can't be saved once marked, so it's crucial that you hunt down those who's doing it. Exrune tells him to see what he can find before telling you to do a bit of stretching since he senses something outside. Members of the group you were hunting seem to be hunting you, so it's time for you to get your first bit of field experience as a Red Mage. The Cabal goes to great lengths to kill you, even summoning powerful Void Sin, but they're no match for the two of you. After the battle, you study the fallen mages. All of them were young, which angers Exrune even more, and he heads back to the church. Red magic was made to stop the abuse of magic. To keep the wielders from growing too reliant on the power, the rules forbade them from drawing on any ether but their own to fuel their spells, while other mages used the ether of the land for power. To augment this, the mages trained their bodies and learned sword techniques that would enhance their spells, all to defend those who would be harmed by rogue mages. Exrune learned red magic 20 years ago when he joined the revolutionaries in Alamigo, where they formed the Crimson Duelists. They fought King Theodric and were a force to be reckoned with until all but Exrune were killed, leaving Alamigo in the hands of the Garleans. Later, when he learned of the coming calamity, Exrune joined the Sharlayan scholars to help prevent it. Even though he was on the losing side again, he still fights for the weak. He only told you all of this because he wanted you to understand the man who you decided to follow. A little while later, the two of you speak with Father Iliad, who has found a bit of info on your attackers. A while back, a merchant and his son were murdered, and while the perpetrators were never caught, evidence showed that they were killed by magic and were natives of Alamigo, just like the father of the girls you saved, which leads Exrune to believe that the true target wasn't the kids, but their father. The two of you head to speak to Wilkin, the girl's father, to make sure he's safe just in case the Cabal attacks again. Iliad learned that he's delivering stock to the Gold Saucer, so you take a trip to the Gambler's Paradise. You spot Wilkin talking to a man that Exrune recognizes from the Alamigan resistance, but instead of trying to guess why they were talking, you simply ask him. Iliad already gave Wilkin a rundown of the situation, but after seeing who he's talking to, Exrune believes he's being targeted since he's funneling money into the Alamigan resistance. Truth be told, a lot of Alamigan refugees work at the Saucer, and a few are part of the resistance. Wilkin didn't personally know the merchant and son who were killed, but he knew that the man helped the resistance in the same way that he does, making Exrune think that the Garleans are behind the attacks. Although Garleans can't use magic, they aren't against hiring assassins who can. Wilkin's next bit of business is in Vesper Bay, which is a good place to get ambushed, so it's likely the Cabal will attack him then. To prevent it, the two of you offer yourselves as bodyguards. To guarantee an attack, Exrune has Wilkin tell far more people than normal about his trip, so the two of you check the most logical ambush sites, and sure enough, more of the mind control soldiers are waiting for you. They fall easily, but Exrune lets one escape so you can see where he goes. He goes to follow him while you make sure Wilkin's safe. He's unharmed, so you go to meet Exrune. The Cabal member he chased fled on a boat with other people, so a bit of work identifying the ship should help you find out where it went and who paid for it. With a call to his contacts in the Scions of the Seventh Dome, Exrune seems to be as famous as the Warrior of Light. He finds out that the assassin ship has been spotted in Elport. The two of you head to the port and begin poking around for clues. There are a lot of rumors around the ship, enough to get the Yellow Jackets, part of the Lamensen military, involved with keeping an eye on them. But since they haven't been caught breaking any laws, they have no grounds to search the ship. Since neither of you are part of the military, there's no order stopping you from checking out a bit of their cargo just to see if they're hiding any contraband. You open a box and find a girl inside of it. If that's not illegal, then I don't know what is. She doesn't know how she got in the box, but she thinks her name is Arya. Exrune thinks the girl may have been kidnapped and you should get her away from there as soon as possible, but his face terrifies her. You let her know that he's okay and only looks vicious. An obvious lie to anybody who's seen him fight, but Arya takes you at your word and you all get a room to discuss what to do next. Arya falls asleep and Exrune lets you know that he found other things in the boxes that caused the Yellow Jackets to launch a full-scale investigation, but the assassins fled before they could be caught. As for Arya, he smelled something on her breath that could have made her lose her memory, which led him to believe that they were about to brand her with one of those mind-controlling runes once they shipped her wherever they had planned to take her. Now you just have to wait for her memory to come back to find out who captured her. A bit of time passes, but Arya's memories still haven't returned, so you take her around to see if familiar sights may jog her memory. Staring out at the ships makes her remember her uncle being her only family, but she can't really piece the memories together, so you head back to the inn to give her time to sort through them. Exrune managed to get information on Arya from the Yellow Jackets, but with her memory returning, she begins to fill in the blanks for you. She lived with her uncle after her parents died. They were leaving Limsa Lamensa one day when people appeared out of thin air and attacked her. Her uncle tried to save her, but they killed him. Everything after that is a blur. With no family left, Arya wants to come with you and help on your hunt. Exrune agrees, but he still doesn't know where to look. Arya, however, remembers her kidnappers talking about the Isles of Umbra, so you head there. The Maelstrom soldiers say that a lot of weird people have been coming to the Isles, all of them fitting the descriptions of the mind-controlled puppets the Cabal uses. Exrune gave Arya a weapon just in case she needs to fight, but she's so jumpy from all the stuff on the island that it's doubtful she'll be able to do anything with it. You all fight your way past skeletons and the mind-controlled members of the Cabal until you arrive on the beach where the mages sacrifice themselves to summon a void scent. With it taken down, you split up to hunt down the leader of the group who has to be nearby. While you search for him, he finds you, sensing the energy that flows through you. He gets ready to attack, but Exrune shows up. Surprisingly, he knows the man. His name is Lambard, and he's a former member of the Crimson Duelists. He's also the traitor who had helped murder the others. He plans on finishing off Exrune here and now, but Arya launches a fireball at him, causing him to retreat. Arya asks if he knew the man, but Exrune is more curious about where she learned to do magic. When he had given her the staff, he'd expected her to hit people with it, not channel ether to throw actual magic. Of course, she has no idea where she learned it, but at least it was useful. You all return to Elport quickly because Lambard is not someone you want to fight unprepared. Back in the city, Exrune tells you the full story of how he came to know the leader of the Cabal. 20 years ago, the two of them were part of the group who started the Crimson Duelists, but one day Lambard went crazy and killed the others while Exrune was away. It was only later that he had learned that the Empire had hired him to do it, which still didn't explain why he was willing to turn on his friends in the first place. After not seeing the man for 20 years, he had thought he was dead. Now that he knows he's alive, he plans to hunt him down, but he won't ask you to help him settle a personal debt. Of course, you and Arya won't let him do this alone. Arya even wants to learn red magic so she won't be a burden to you anymore. Exrune actually thinks it's a good idea and gets Arya the uniform of the Red Mages before the three of you set off to hunt Lambard. The Cabal seems to have given up on Wilkin after all of the assassins you've cost him, so Exrune had a friend in Limsa looking for other signs of the Cabal's activities, so that's your next stop. His informant's name is Rio, a member of the company of heroes that you met on another adventure. He found out that Lambard is getting his orders from the Imperial base Castrum Meridianum. The plan is to head to Castrum and find information on Lambard's next target while someone causes a distraction. Naturally, you will be the decoy. Despite having only a bit of practice in red magic, Arya's destructive power is immense, but this is her first actual battle, so X-Room wants her to stay close to him until they get inside, especially since her healing abilities are practically non-existent. You make quite the distraction, giving your friends free reign of the facility. They get what they need, but it'll be smart to discuss it somewhere else before reinforcements arrive. What they found confirms that the Cabal kidnaps young people with great magical potential like Arya and take them to Lambard, who turns them into puppets with his curse sigil. It was made on the Empire's orders to hunt down members of the Alamegan resistance who operated outside of the Empire's reach under the orders of Prince Xenos. If you haven't encountered him yet in the story, just know that he's a crazy super warrior who hands the Warrior of Light their first serious defeat in one-on-one combat. Lambard's complete disregard for human life is what probably made Xenos want to work with him in the first place, since like minds tend to stick together, and Xenos is about the most violent person they have. The next target that Xenos wants Lambard to hit is the Garland Ironworks, the company run by your good friend Sid, who has been sharing engineering secrets with the Alamegan resistance. They're not going after Sid himself, but Jesse, Sid's second in command, who runs pretty much everything while he's off handling other projects. Something happening to her would cripple Sid's operations, and Lambard has been given permission to do whatever it takes to get the job done. So either you stop him, or he will throw the vast resources at his disposal at Jesse until he eliminates her. Jesse is getting ready to make a delivery to the Resistance, so an attack is likely to come before she makes it to her airship docked on the outskirts of Revenant's Toll. With planning and Jesse's help, you should be able to ambush the ambushers, so you go to discuss your plans with Jesse herself. She's pretty nonchalant about the idea of someone murdering her, and she doesn't mind being used to draw out her attackers, although X-Room doesn't want to expose her knowing how dangerous Lambard is. Arya comes up with the brilliant idea to dress up as Jesse since they are close to the same size, and from a distance with a little work, no one will be the wiser. With Arya's disguise in place, you act as a bodyguard on the path to the airship to deal with the assassins who take the bait. X-Room will head around the back to intercept the assassins meant to flank you from the south. If the disguise is going to work, Arya can't go around tossing magic at people, so you have to make sure she's safe alone until Lambard shows himself. After you deal with a few of his men, Lambard does join the battle. He doesn't seem to care that he was tricked, even when X-Room appears to help you deal with him. He wants to make him pay for what he's done, but before that, he demands to know why Lambard turned on his friends and joined the Empire in the first place. Lambard's reasons weren't all that complicated. He wanted power. He found a way to wield red magic at an even greater level without being consumed by the corruption that the predecessors feared. It was difficult, and he had to spend years in a magical sleep to evolve his body so it could wield red magic while drawing energy from outside sources instead of simply using his own ether to fuel his spells. He had killed the other duelists as the first step on his journey to absolute power. Enraged, X-Room prepares to attack. Red energy swirls into Lambard, turning his hair red and boosting his power, but X-Room still proves to be the better fighter and gets the upper hand. However, the small scratch that Lambard managed to make allows him to start siphoning off X-Room's life force. As a side effect of his new powers, he has to consume life energy. Xenos allows him to feed to his heart's content, as long as he's killing the Empire's enemies. X-Room orders you and Arya to run away, but there was no way either of you would do that. The two of you battle the former Crimson Duelist, and despite him draining massive amounts of ether from you, he cannot best the pair of you. His soul-stealing power only works if you have open wounds, and sealing your injuries with magic dampens his gift. With his dying words, Lambard hints that there is something strange about Arya, and she may be the thing that leads to your death. For now, she seems fine, and you all head back to Revenant's Toll to inform Jesse of your success, and to celebrate both your victory and your growth as Red Mages. With the defeat of Lambard, X-Room Tia's fight for vengeance was over, so he decided to put a bit more effort into teaching Arya and you, the Warrior of Light, the art of being a Red Mage. The fight for the liberation of Alamigo is well underway, but instead of fighting at the forefront as he did during the time of the Crimson Duelists, he will aid the resistance by training the next generation of Red Mages, starting with you and Arya. Of course, he still believes the hands-on approach is the best, so you head to Idleshire, a place where the strong gather for new adventures. There is a dangerous group of goblins called the Illuminati, how original, right? That are wreaking havoc around Idleshire. One of the ways they harass the populace is with their mechanical soldiers, so X-Room wants to kill two birds with one stone. You will practice your red magic by breaking the Illuminati's toys. Ixrun believes the task will be easy for you, but since Arya's skills are a bit less refined than yours, he wants her to fight with you watching her back. She wants to try alone though. She wants to catch up to the two of you, but she never will if you're always there to save her. Ixrun agrees and lets her try, so you both head into the countryside to face down some robots. You deal with your foes pretty easily, and once you're done, you head back to Ixrun. Arya still hasn't returned, so the two of you go to see if she needs help. You find her surrounded by some large broken machines and goblins, and although she seems exhausted, she's unharmed. Ixrun is concerned by how drained she seems, but before he can ask if she's okay, very familiar red ether swirls into her and her hair turns red. She looks at the two of you and demands that you give her your life force so she can feed before drawing her weapon. There's no reasoning with her in her current state, so the two of you knock her out, causing her to turn back to normal before you carry her back to Ottoshire. Arya wakes with no memory of attacking you. The last thing she remembers is sitting down after a fight with the machines, then hearing a loud roar in her head. Ixrun blames himself. He had seen how using magic drained Arya, but he hadn't taken it seriously. It seems that when Arya runs out of her own ether, her body automatically begins to hunger for other people's ether, just like Lambard, although his body had been altered to make it happen. It is possible that the same was done to Arya, but that's something you can all figure out after she gets some rest. In the meantime, you and Ixrun will find a cure for Arya's condition, although neither of you know very much about it at the moment. Ixrun decides that you should head to Girabania to a ziggurat built by ancient Red Mages. He and Lambard had explored it years ago looking for ancient magic. The place is overrun by beasts now, but it may hold knowledge that can help cure Arya. She won't be allowed to come. Until you figure out what's wrong with her, Ixrun forbids her from doing any magic. She doesn't argue, although she feels bad that you're taking such a long trip just for her. Not like she wouldn't do the same for you. At the ziggurat, you and Ixrun hunt for anything with any information about the history of the Red Mages and their magic. The ziggurat was built as a buffer against the shifts in the ether after the ancient calamity, as well as a library to store the stories of generations of Red Mages. A lot of it has been lost to thieves or worn away through time, but hopefully something is left intact that can help. What you find talks of a ritual where a mage makes a pact with the Voidsent and drinks a bit of its blood in exchange for extreme power. Some Voidsent have a serious taste for human ether. Lambard probably gained his ability to steal life force by uniting with one of those. The practice was started by some Maaki sorcerers before the Sixth Umbral Calamity, and since Red Mages used their own ether to fuel their spells, being able to draw power directly from their opponents would be enticing. Done right, it could give nearly godlike power. Done wrong, and it can turn you into something of an ether vampire, so the practice was forbidden. Fortunately, there's a potion that can stave off the hunger. Even more fortunately, the recipe is on the tablets that you found. With Arya's change seeming similar to Lambard's, the potion should work for her. The main ingredient comes from a creature called an Urolith, so you go to get it while Ixrun gathers the other ingredients. All that's left is to get the potion mixed, but Arya's been alone for long enough, so Ixrun heads to Ul'dah to get the potion made while you go to check on your friend. Ixrun returns shortly after you arrive in Ottoshire with the potion. Arya drinks it and immediately starts to feel better, even though it tasted like the inside of a boot. The potion is only a temporary measure. It restored her ether, but you still have to deal with the cause of her issue. If she overuses her magic, the hunger will return, so it would be best if she stops training for a while, at least until you figure out what caused the transformation. Whatever happened to her, it had to happen before Lambard captured her because she wasn't held for long enough for him to infuse her with Voidsent blood, so the three of you must do what you can to find more information on her condition. And one of the best places for ancient knowledge is anything left behind by the Sharlaeans. While doing research, Ixrun remembers a book that Lambard paid a whole lot of attention to. He can't remember the name of the book, but it had the stories of a deranged serial killer who performed weird ritual murders with strange magic. Eventually he was executed in Ishgard as a heretic. That may have been the magic that Lambard had sought to learn and had used to augment his body. The book is rare, so it may be best to see if any well-renowned treasure hunters have heard any leads to where to find it. Midnight Dew. I'm hoping that's just a code name, otherwise her parents must have really hated her. In Ottoshire seems to know something about everything, so you and Arya pay her a visit while Ixrun checks with Rowena, a collector of all types of rare items. One of Midnight Dew's comrades told her of a rare book called Nightkin that he'd seen in the Google library while he was running for his life. It was written by an Ishgardian murderer who claimed to be a demon, and is said to be full of all kinds of crazy stuff. Sounds exactly like what you're looking for. Ixrun agrees that it sounds like the same book, but he hasn't been in the library for a long time, so he'd be horrible at finding anything in there. Fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on how your experiences were, you know the library very well, so you get to lead the way as the two of you go to find the book. Arya wants to go, but since the guardians of the library attack anyone who enters, it won't be safe for her without her magic. That just leaves you and Ixrun to fight your way through the halls of the library. The journey past the guardians of the library is far more difficult than what seems necessary to guard even the most important of books, but the two of you fight your way through it all and find the book that you need. The book gives a lot of detailed explanations of forbidden sorcery, but there's so much more that Ixrun thinks Arya should hear about, so it's back to Idleshire you go. Some of the things the book talks about even makes Ixrun uncomfortable, but there is a bit of good news. The mage who wrote the book had mastered all kinds of ancient spells, from red magic to Ma'aki summoning rituals. The reason he was so powerful was because he was a direct descendant of a Ma'aki archmage who had drank the blood of the Void-Sent Queen Lilith. He was the first to merge with the Void-Sent for power, and even though the practice was outlawed later, the damage had already been done. The Void-Sent Queen's blood will be passed into the mage's heirs, making a clan of ether-drinking spellcasters called Nightkin. Lambard was actually descended from the Nightkin clan. Arya probably is as well. The book's author's last name was Kalawaz, the same as Lambard. The same name was also heavily represented on Arya's family tree on her mother's side. Her being born with Void-Sent blood would explain why her magic was so strong, and it doesn't take consuming more blood for people like Arya and Lambard to gain their power. The corruption in their blood just has to be awakened. The book even gives details on how. Arya's power was most likely awakened from her studies of red magic, but that brings up the question of why it happened so much faster in her than it had in Lambard. She could have been born with a stronger connection to her ancestor than Lambard, which would explain his dying words about her leading to your deaths. Fortunately, the book also tells of the way to break the curse. The first Kalawaz brought Lilith into the physical world by giving her a mortal host. After he made a deal with her, he trapped her in a warded coffin so she couldn't return to her world. That way the power she gave would never fade, so if the Void-Sent Queen is banished from Eorzea, the corruption in Arya should fade. Beating a Void-Sent that powerful won't be easy, but the vessel it's in doesn't give it access to its full strength, so the three of you should be able to handle it. The book's author found the prison, but it's unclear whether he moved it or not, so if you want to find it, you will have to follow the author's footsteps. That night, Arya has a strange dream. She dreams of the Rider of Nightkin and the black coffin that he hid in his house. A group of knights broke in and arrested him and took the coffin. The dream was so vivid that Ixrun decides that asking around the tribunal in Ishgard where the knights served would be a good idea. The priest refuses to give Ixrun any information, but since you are known as the hero of Ishgard for your part in the Dragon Song War, the priest gladly offers you assistance, although it will take a while to gather old records. Ixrun waits for the documents while you take Arya on a tour of the city. She still has holes in her memory, so she wants to fill them with new adventures and sights, and to do that she needs to be able to practice her magic again. Without it, she doesn't know what she'll do. Ixrun finds the two of you and he's excited to inform you that not only does he know where the coffin is, but it matched Arya's dream. Apparently the thing creeped the Inquisitors out so much that they threw it off a cliff at a place in Kurthus called the Witch Drop. The place is filled with Void-Sent, probably due to the coffin being there, so it'll be a dangerous trip. And what else is new? The three of you head down into the ravine and you find the coffin just lying there. The Void-Sent from inside calls out that only one with her blood can break the seal, and since you don't have her blood, she summons other Void-Sent to deal with you. You defeat the creatures, and after you tell Ixrun about what you heard from the coffin, he wonders if you heard Lilith herself. Arya wants to try opening the coffin. If what Lilith said was true, then the only way to open it is her. Since it'll be kind of difficult to finish off the Void-Sent without opening the coffin, there aren't many other options. Ixrun can feel the power coming from the coffin. It's going to be dangerous, so he warns Arya to be careful, but no amount of preparation could prepare you for the monster that comes out. Lilith is a very ugly snake demon, and she reveals that everything that has happened has all been a part of her plan to get Arya for her new vessel. She's been guiding her descendants through dreams, bringing them together and breeding stronger and stronger heirs, until she sent Lambard to retrieve her vessel without him even knowing. Her words put Arya in a trance, and before you can stop her, Lilith takes her and teleports away. All isn't lost. Ixrun's knowledge on the subject of possession says that it takes a ritual for Lilith to take Arya's body, and that will take time. Now you just have to find out where they are. He decides that the Thaumaturge Guild is a good place to get help tracking Arya. Void scent possession rituals are complicated, so instead of taking the time to learn where they need to be cast, it's best to find someone who already knows about them. Since the thaumaturges are successors to the arcane knowledge of the Ma'ak, they should have some information about Lilith. The receptionist, Yayake, at the guild goes on and on about how the books about Lilith are all forbidden, and never meant to see the light of day again because their knowledge is too dangerous to be spread into the world. Which means it'll take her a few minutes to get them for you since they've been chained to the bookshelves. Lilith is an incredibly powerful void scent, mainly because of her ability to control people. Anyone with any of her blood in them can be taken over, and with so many of her descendants running around, she has access to an army. The sigil that Lambard used to create his puppets was a manifestation of Lilith's power. He just drew her name and his blood on the victims, and they became slaves to her will. And that was only a piece of her power. She can also spit venom and drain people's life force, although her current vessel is not strong enough to take full advantage of her might. With a vessel like Arya, she will have the power to take revenge on the humans who locked her away. While that information would be useful in a fight, it doesn't help when it comes to finding Arya. Yayake has a solution to that as well. Lilith has to recreate the conditions of her original summoning, from the alignment of the stars to the location, and the place where she was summoned is the ruined city of Ma'ak. Fortunately, you've already been to the Weeping City, a story that I'll cover another time, and to get there you need an airship. For that, you call in a favor from an old friend, Jesse of the Garland Ironworks. After the assassination attempt that you saved her from, it takes just a link shell call for her to get you a ship. Before you go, Ixrun offers to pay Yayake for her help, but a merchant already paid them with the instructions to help any mages in red who came there. Apparently Wilkin, the merchant whose kids you saved so long ago, has spent a lot of money in Uda to make sure that you and Ixrun never have to pay for anything in the city. With that out of the way, you head to Revenant's Toll to meet Jesse. The woman plans to fly you to the Weeping City personally to pay Arya back for her part in stopping Lambard. With no time to waste, you all take off to face Lilith and save Arya. Hopefully. The instant Lilith realizes that you're there, she may start the ritual whether the time is right or not, so you have to be fast or Arya is done for. Even an imperfect ritual would be enough to kill the girl and give Lilith access to at least some of her powers, something she will be more than willing to do if it means beating you. The city is filled with lesser void scent, but you and Ixrun cut your way through them until you find the queen. Sure enough, she begins transferring her essence into Arya the instant the two of you arrive. Lilith's power is even more devastating than you anticipated, and even though you manage to bring her down, she still manages to enter Arya. However, since the ritual wasn't performed at the proper time, Arya's desire to live allows her to expel Lilith from her mind and wake, freeing her from the curse of the Void Scent's blood once and for all. With that done, you all leave the tainted city behind. Although you saved Arya and she's eager to get back to her training, separating her from Lilith removed almost all of her arcane power. This change doesn't discourage the girl. In fact, she's excited because now all the progress that she makes with red magic will be thanks to her skill and not her unique heritage. Since she hasn't given up, Ixrun tells her to study thaumaturgy and conjury, and once she has the fundamentals down, he will start teaching her again. With the skill you showed fighting Lilith, Ixrun doesn't have anything else to teach you for now either, so for the time being he must say goodbye and continue on his pilgrimage until the day that you all meet again, a day that he believes will be a lot sooner than you think. After your adventures in the first, you, the Warrior of Light, head to Revenant's Toll to check on Arya. Ironically enough, she was about to come looking for you. She got a letter from Ixrun that he wanted her to give to you. He needs you to meet him in the Alamegan quarter because he needs your help. Arya is extremely excited to go, so you both run off to see what your teacher needs. Ixrun was happy to see both of you, but he would have preferred it to be under better circumstances. Some grave robbers have vandalized the memorial that he left behind for his former group, the Crimson Duelists. Because he was so busy fighting to help people when they died, he didn't have a chance to give them a proper burial. Instead, he collected all of their swords and stored them in the tomb of the errant sword. Since Alamigo has settled down after getting his freedom from Garlemald, Ixrun figured it was a good time to pay his respects to his fallen friends, which was when he noticed the tomb had been robbed. The Resistance said that they were going to do something about it, but they're busy rebuilding after the war, so the robbery is not a priority at the moment. Since the Resistance has forced the Empire out, the people who got by on the Empire's support have turned to other means to get what they want, mainly by becoming bandits. But others decided to try grave robbing since, corpses don't poke you with pointy objects when you try to take their stuff. But since Ixrun's friends were among those victims, the grave robbers definitely should have done something else with their time, because Ixrun's not happy. and when he's not happy, he tends to blow things up. Sadly, he can't go all out too fast, or he may accidentally kill the thieves before he finds out where they hid the loot, which is why he called for you. An extra set of hands will make catching the thieves alive a bit easier. Arya, of course, wants to help too, but without access to her ether, it'll be too dangerous. However, since the defeat of Lilith, she's been practicing, fighting the creatures in Mordona, and has managed to master the basic spells again. Ixrum chastises her for fighting such strong beasts alone, but she counters, claiming that she'll never match the two of you if she doesn't push herself. Reluctantly, after an intense staring match, Ixrum decides to let her tag along as long as she doesn't leave his side. So the three of you head to the Bloodhowl graveyard where Ixrum's track the robbers, with the aim of bringing them in alive. Hopefully. While Arya is eager to show that she can be useful, it's your job to find the thieves and trick them into heading toward Ixrum. The task isn't all that difficult, but the thieves aren't as dumb as you think and they split up. Two go toward Ixrum's trap, while the others decide it's a good idea to, murder you. I shouldn't have to explain what happens to them, but if you must know, let's just say it's a good thing you're already in a graveyard. When you get back to Arya and Ixrum, Arya is excited to say that her loss of power works wonders for not accidentally blowing people up that you want to keep alive. Ixrum has to admit that even though she's only had a short time to train after losing her powers, Arya did quite well capturing the thieves. Seeing as only 2 of the 4 thieves showed up, he figures 2 of them tried to take you out and failed, a sign that your skills have grown to be possibly even greater than his own. After you tell him a bit about what you dealt with on the first, he begins to understand why. After capturing them, the thieves become very talkative and reveal that they buried their goods in the royal hunting grounds. Ixrum decides to send Arya to deliver the prisoners to the Resistance while the 2 of you retrieve the loot. Then you all meet up at the Tomb of the Errant Sword. It's not hard for you to find the buried goods, so the 2 of you head to the tomb where Arya is waiting for you. Together, you all bring the relics back to where they belong. The final relic is a sword that belonged to one of Ixrum's comrades who had incredibly small ether reserves. He had the weapon made so he could channel his energies in the best way with the least effort, and he spent a lot of gil to have it crafted. The other duelists teased him, but he would simply say, "Even should I fail to do this steel justice, it will remain after I'm gone, and another will wield it and prove that it was money well spent." With all of the Red Mages dead, Ixrum figured there would never be anyone left to wield it, but with the 2 of you carrying on the legacy of the Crimson Duelists, he thinks it's only fitting that one of you wield the weapon. He hands it to Arya since she's relearned the basics of red magic, and it's time for her to once again begin training as a Red Mage, this time while wielding the weapon of a former Crimson Duelist. Sadly, Ixrum still has a bit of work to do on his own before he can focus on her lessons, so you and Arya head back to Mordona, where she continues her training until the day that Ixrum finally returns. This concludes the story of the Red Mage, at least for now. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on the next video.